前作のフードインクも、今回のフードインク2も映画の世界に引き込まれました。で、見終わった後に、すごい大変なものを目撃してしまったと。で、そういう素直な気持ちと、タブーもあるのによくここまで踏み込めたと、ジャーナリストとして関心もしたし、嫉妬も覚えたというものでした。で、二度も食品業界のタブーに切り込んだ監督は、よっぽど勇気が終わりなんでしょうか、それとも無謀なんでしょうか。
I appreciate the question. Um, I think as a journalist, and we are, documentarians are journalists. And I think our profession, whether it's working for newspapers or doing what you're doing, we're all kind of endangered, and there's less and less journalism that's taking place in the world today. In our country at the moment, there's a profound sense of depression, and at the same time, people wanting to sort of get back to their lives. So do you take time out, or do we have to go back and fight a good fight? And it's trying to figure out the balance. We'd been asked to make a sequel to Food Inc. for many years, and we had no interest whatsoever in doing a sequel. But when the pandemic hit, I think we were so outraged by what we were seeing, how this system was so both brittle and dangerous for the environment, for the workers, for the animals, and ultimately for the consumers. And we felt that maybe it was time to revisit a subject that we all swore we would never go back and talk about again. But somehow we all sort of jumped back in to go take another look. But it's hard for documentarians to go do a sequel. As a documentarian, you never want to go back to tell the same story again. But there seemed to be something new. For me, what was most interesting and what was most brand new in this subject was the idea that we are producing so many more calories than we need to eat in the food system, and how this new food system is creating these ultra processed foods, and the dangers of these new foods, and how in the United States, almost 2/3 of all our calorie intake is from ultra processed foods. And Japan, I think it's about 40%. And in both countries, the percentage is climbing dramatically. And we are now seeing how dangerous this new food system will be for us. And it's a product of this new capitalist, or not new, but of this capitalist system and this highly concentrated food system that's certainly worse in our country, but it's certainly, your country is becoming a little more and more like our country as we move on.
アメリカのその農業、食品業界っていうのは、その政治界にとても大きな影響力があるって聞いています。で、その続編を作るにあたって、業界から何か圧力をかけられるようなことはなかったんでしょうか。
When we made the first film, it was sort of a film that reached across broad party lines. We were surprised to see how people on the right and the left were all interested in how their food was made. And food is a great metaphor for political power, because almost every aspect of the world we live in has become highly consolidated by corporate power. And I think certainly more in the United States, but I do think it's true in your country as well. Probably less in agriculture, but certainly, in other forms of manufacturing. And that power is corrupting. And that power is dangerous. And that power is also not only dangerous to how as I say, the metaphor of food, but it's also dangerous to the democracy that we live in as well. And that is what I found so discouraging as we sort of went on to make the sequel.
日本ではそのマスメディアが広告主である大企業に対して忖度して、何か問題があったとしても報じないことがあるんですけれども、アメリカではマスメディアが大企業に対して忖度することはないんでしょうか？
That's a very good question. And the answer is more and more the media is frightened off from asking questions, and it's becoming more and more censored in the United States. And it's, I think, chilling to see how there's no longer there a number of wonderful filmmakers who made hard-hitting films that no longer have outlets to show their films. Newspapers are becoming more and more diminished and shrinking, and are scared to take positions. So I think there's less and less journalism happening around the world. There are more and more, I think, corrupt leaders in so many different parts of the world who are gaining power. And I think we're in a very scary time for so much of the globe and where we're going. But I think it's probably worse. I mean, I think it's probably bad in both countries, but for different reasons. But we've become really become very, getting more and more censored in the United States. And I know there are aspects of that in Japan as well.
映画の中では、コロナ禍で前の大統領のトランプ氏が何をしたかっていうのが描かれていました。で、今回、再び大統領に返り咲くトランプ氏は、気候変動に懐疑的で、今、アゼルバイジャンで COP29 っていうのが開催されていますけれども、温室効果ガスを世界で2番目に多く出しているアメリカが、またそのパリ協定から離脱するんじゃないかっていうふうに言われています。監督はトランプ氏の影響をどうお抱えですか？
The danger of the Trump administration, how dangerous will it be for the role of democracy in the United States and for the rest of the world? But the one thing we know is the damage that will be done to climate change is irreversible. And I, feel sorry for our children and our grandchildren who will now be living in this world that will be so affected by the dangers that we're starting to see the consequences of.
今回その映画に関する記事を朝日新聞 SDGs アクションというサイトで12月初めに公開します。で、この記事の中に監督からのメッセージ、お言葉も盛り込みたいと考えています。そこで日本の読者に対して監督から一言メッセージをお願いできますか？
I think that we all need to ultimately continue to fight for a world that is a sustainable world. I think we need to be eating both healthy food that's good for us and good for the planet, and to fight for democratic virtues that enable, all people, that we can have good food for all people, not just for healthy people, rich people, rather, which is certainly, something that's necessary around the globe. One thing we saw in the United States is when CEOs of companies are making more in an hour than their workers make in a year, it's bad for democracy, and it's bad for the food we're eating, and we need to continue to resist. And I do think that generally people do want to eat healthy food. So in a way, food can be the path to lead us to a more just and democratic society. It's a metaphor for, I think, a lot of good things that cut across political lines. Hopefully that will happen in your country and in my country as well. And I appreciate the good work you're doing, and I thank you for it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very